Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
To build upon what has been done already and to integrate it with the applicational component, which is what this session is about, I am not going to talk of managerial grade because that has been discussed already, but I am going to talk to you about the PDCA approach. The PDCA approach is perhaps represented by way of a cycle. Now, when I was discussing QM with you earlier on, we did not refer to the PDCA approach because both in terms of its significance and its range, it merits to be treated differently. This cycle shows essentially how it works. You plan, you do, you check and you act, fairly commonsensical. But then you will find that there is a lot in management which is commonsensical, just as heat and light is commonsensical. Remember my reference to it in the previous occasion. You plan to do the things right. Now, somebody once asked me, where is the reason to ask people to plan? And the answer is very simple, because people do not plan. So, you have to begin by saying there is such a thing as planning. What is a plan so far as you are concerned? A plan is a goal resource network chain. If you want to get somewhere, and that is the quickest example which comes to my mind, you have to look at what is the time you have, what is the vehicle you have, what is the kind of road you have, and you put it all together and you create an estimate. That is planning. It does not mean that your plan will work out to a T. But at least plan helps you to measure and to know by how much you are going wrong and in which direction. Therefore, planning is critical. And believe me, planning does not happen on its own. Like any other process, planning has to be learned. So, the PDCA approach emphasizes plan. Do the right things, so important, so simple to express, so difficult to follow. Even more important than doing things right is the act of doing the right things. The reason? If you are not doing the right things, your energies are going elsewhere. Sorry. When you do plan, you take a long range view. You are not guided by the whim and the fantasy of the moment. You are not only looking at 1 year, you are not only looking at 2 years, you are looking at 10 years, you are looking at 20 years. Whether you like it or not, certain segments of your life are learning platforms. If you are not learning at the age of 19, 20, 21, 22, you will never learn, because you will never get full time learning opportunity. And if while you are supposed to learn, you believe you are enjoying life, then again be prepared to pay for it. So, the long and short of it is, do the right things. This applies to issues of life skills. This applies to issues of professional skills. This applies to issues of just about any kind of learning which you can talk about. Then the question of how, which is the doing part, there it is said do the things right. Because if you do a thing which is right, you might as well do it right. Because if you are not doing it right, the returns won't come. And then comes the question of excellence. And remember, excellence is not just standards. You have to go far beyond excellence to catch attention. You really have to be outstanding. Mediocrity never got recognition. Mediocrity will get you survival. And like everything else, one of the biggest resources is the finance, the cost budget and the focus. Then the question of act, which is continuous improvement. No matter what you are doing, no matter how you are doing, it can be done better. So, you have to be a learning person if you want to be a growing person, and you have to be a growing person if you want to be a successful person. And believe me, there is no substitute to this and there are no exceptions to this. This again is one of those claptrap management situations. Who has not been told in early childhood by elders, speak the truth? Does anyone learn it? Even a thief wants his progeny, his child, to stay straight. At least I have never heard of dynastic thieves who say, we have always lived by stealing and you, my child, should learn how to steal because this is in what family has always excelled. That is the power of positive force. The amazing thing is, people always teach the right things, but whoever said that because you teach the right things will be learnt? If you look at the life history of any of the great thinkers, philosophers, religious leaders, social leaders, after all, if man is a thinking animal, thinking competency is the rarest of it all. They have all ended up with saying the same thing. Be good, be nice, be positive, be constructive. You do not have to be a Christian to be constructive. You do not have to be a Sikh, you do not have to be a Hindu, you do not have to be a Muslim. All religions say the same thing. And yet the amazing thing is, religion has caused more bloodshed than any other single factor in human life. Of course, caste is competing well with it. Who has learnt? Since time immemorial, it is said, violence never solves a problem. Violence only perpetrates itself. You may win a battle, you will never win a war. Has that prevented people from going to war? The biggest industry in the world today is the armaments industry. Just manufacturing weapons of destruction. And nations who are on the verge of starving spend more than 50% of their budget buying arms. And yet every son of a woman or every child of a woman knows violence does not solve a problem. Who called man a learning animal? The PDA cycle therefore again makes a lot of glib assumptions like empowerment, devolution. We have talked of all that. This is at the best an idealistic model. Act for continuous improvement. Who believes in continuous improvement? Tell me. They all pretend that they do. You talk to any group, you will be surprised if even 5% of them keep a personal development dossier. Yet if you ask them, do you believe in self improvement? Of course, the eyes will widen, the neck will shake, the ears will go back, of course. So what do you do about it? Oh, lots of things. Now the moment somebody says lots of things, I know he has nothing to say. It's like saying, what the example is, you put chili, etc., etc., etc. In the moment you start saying etc., it means you have nothing to say. But notwithstanding that, the PDC model is the model for quality, and ultimately it leads to leadership, which has both strategic and planning and goes back to plan. Now, as I said, this is a pristine model. Its true observance is rare, but it remains a model nevertheless. So, what does a plan mean? A plan can be to initiate a new process or improve one existing one. It should be based upon customer needs and resolve to more effectively fulfill the organization's mission. What does it do? Is most effective, least time consuming, involving minimum wastage of resources, product quality should not be compromised. When you recheck your action, what do you check for? You review the gathered data, verify your data. The biggest errors are made because of an erroneous data. If the planned and implemented change has created the quality improvement intended, in other words, measure the change. Then act, take action either to implement the change or change variables to see if the process can be made more effective. To put it very simply, are you progressing about the goals which you set out to reach? Is your progress in the right direction? And if your progress is not in the right direction, go back to reviewing it. And in all cases, standardize the new and the successful process, but as I keep on saying, standardization is different from standards, and standards is different from success. Talking of quality movement, another person who played a very key role in it, almost generated a movement, is Deming. I do not want to give discourse on the quality movement, but while talking of intervention strategies and stabilization of change, you can't but talk of quality movement. I had talked of different components of quality movement in the preceding session. I am merely taking that forward in talking of the quality movement by bringing in the name of Deming. And he said, create constancy of purpose towards improvement of product and services. They all say the same thing. Transparency, credibility, constancy, persistence, it does not change. Some talk of 14 principles, some talk of 3 principles, some talk of 5 principles, the core remains the same. So, Deming also talked of constancy of purpose towards improvement of product and services, adopt the new philosophy, cease dependence on inspection to achieve quality. Now, this is a very important point Deming made. He made a simple point: either people believe in quality or they do not believe in quality. If they believe in quality, they do not need inspection. And if they do not believe in quality, inspection will not cause it. And I think he is right. It is merely carrying forward a principle which I had tried to enunciate. You will improve only if you want to improve. Harangue never improved anyone, which is while dealing with adults, I just leave them to follow what they think is right, and my standard response always is, bless you. May you get what you deserve. So, Deming was saying the same thing. An organization which requires inspection won't be able to achieve quality, because then all the energy will be put on applying your intelligence to beat inspection standards. End of the practice of awarding business on basis of price tag alone, instead minimize total cost often accomplished by working with a single supplier. Now, this is a very interesting philosophy. You know, a lot of organizations believe that you must keep switching your supplier all the time. They call it the principle of rotation. The truth is, a lot of management success has taken place because of following the opposite principle. I do not like to change my supplier. He knows my habits, he knows my temperament, he knows the quality standards I want. Why should I change him? Then they say it causes dependency. What in life does not cause dependency? Tell me. Your mother causes dependency. Your spouse causes dependency, your driver causes dependency, everyone causes dependency. And it is an odd man who says, do not be dependent, do it on your own. No, how do I do it on my own? Please advise me. All the pretensions to be adult and all the incompetencies to be an adult is one of the many contradictions life has yet to resolve. Improve constantly and forever the system of production and service. Nothing to explain there. Institute training on the job, institute leadership, drive out fear. Now, how do you drive out fear? I never met Mr. Deming, so I couldn't ask him. Now, of course, if Natha Singh had said it, nobody would quote Natha Singh, but since Deming said it, everyone quotes Deming. Deming said, drive out fear. It sounds good, you know, somewhere to say Deming said it. It is very scholarly. Imagine somebody getting up and say, Professor Natha Singh said, drive out fear. Ki dasa tusi? Natha Singh? Drive out fear? What is that at? Again, I wait till I come to management by objectives, that is even a greater delight. According to, and you are supposed to know it, otherwise you are not a management student. Who knows, when you go for a placement interview, they will ask you, who talked of management by objectives? And then he will rock in his chair and very profoundly look at you. Now tell me, you done MBA? Ah, very nice. Tell me, who talked of management by objectives? Then he will look left, he will look right, hoping the other panelists are very impressed. What a profound question I have asked. and you will be desperate there with your tie, suit, pant, everything. Sir, according to what I think, sir, and you look at him, is he listening, is he not listening? What I think, sir, is that I think, sir, Peter Drucker, right. See, Changa Munda Singh, good boy, Peter Drucker. Now, that is your index to be a good manager. God help such organizations. In other words, it is easy to convert common sense into a principle, but everyone else is talking of the same thing. Break down the barriers between departments, he said, and that makes sense. That is one of his contributions. He says, don't run an organization on a departmental basis, focus them on products. Eliminate slogans. A lot of quality movement is just slogans. You know, go to any shop floor. If they are bragging about how good they are bound to have slogans. That is the only place they use Indian languages. They never use Indian languages in boards, but they use Indian languages on shop floors for quality slogans. Gunavatta. You see, Indian languages are meant for the workers. The higher people speak, you know, languages which you understand, you know, the language which I am speaking, you know, better still French, Spanish. The more incomprehensible it is, the better it is. But Denning hit the other end of the spectrum. He said, no slogans, no exhortations. Eliminate work standard quotas and management by objectives. It is a pity that Deming and Peter Drucker never met. I would have loved to listen to that conversation. And you can always contradict one thought while quoting another scholar. You will never find two scholars agreeing on anything. That is why they are a scholar. Now, who is a scholar? Who takes what is simple and well understood by everyone to something so abstruse that nobody understands. Once you have achieved that, then you have become a scholar. Remove barriers that job workers, engineers and managers of the right and pride of workmanship. In other words, everyone must have pride of workmanship, whether you are a worker, engineer or a manager, and there I think Deming is right. Institute a vigorous program of education and self-improvement. Put everybody in the company to work to accomplish transformation. I do not know how he would do that, but according to Deming Saab, everyone should be put to work to accomplish the transformation. What are the tools of TQM? We have discussed all this. I am not going to spend time on it again. I am going to move on to the case of transforming an Indian manufacturing company, the Rane brake lining case. The Rane brake lining RBL is an ISO 9001 and ISO 14001 company and is a part of $261 million Rane Group, an automotive components company which has collaborations with global majors like TRW USA and Nishinbo Japan, a global leader in friction and material manufacturing. Becoming more profitable in 1999 required finding new markets, but that required first managing the company better, so that costs decreased as quality improved. Develop a business model to generate business for long periods through uniqueness in product technology and uniqueness in achieving certain excellence. It reduced technological dependence on another company. It created new markets to achieve drastic expansion of existing markets, unique and enhanced utilization of manpower, human resources that drive a company to supply excellent manpower. Their focus was on role clarity. Now, this is very important. This is a design issue. People will not perform unless they have job clarity. Their focus, like every other management intervention, was on competence development. They also had effective management points and checkpoints. and they had a systematic approach to planning. The initiatives taken were on redefining the management processes for new product development systems, manufacturing quality, supplier quality and customer quality. In other words, whichever is the intervention you are talking of, you will notice that each case study illustrates the choice of sub-segments for intervention. The first one talked of timing. This one is talking of manufacturing quality and supplier quality. In other words, like every individual, every organization, every department, every division will have its unique layout, its unique characteristics, and you have to diagnose it to understand which ones of them need to be improved and which ones amongst them should be left to continue to perform. Each manager was required to define his role, his metrics, his measurement of performance up to date, and then steps being taken to improve performance. What they discovered was that each function must have a unique purpose, otherwise why do it? Each purpose to have a role, each role to have a managing points to achieve purpose. You see the systematic way in which it was done. This is how interventions was carried out. Each function to have a unique purpose, each purpose to have a role, each role to have managing points to achieve purpose. In other words, it must be carefully monitored. All managing points to have measures of performance. Monitoring cannot be done in isolation. Monitoring must always be done with measurements. Monitoring must always be done for a feedback on whether the goals and the purposes were being achieved or not. Now, creating that kind of an approach to intervention is the heart of the application of intervention strategies. And that should be a major takeaway from this session. All managing points must have matrices. All management points to have either graphs or vital activity monitoring charts. Now, whether you use the pie chart or you use a graph or you use whatever, putting it pictorially creates an impact and therefore, people get a feedback on their own performance, both as a group and as a shop floor. So, remember again what we are trying to discuss, the applicational aspects of the intervention strategies and what are the systems you use to create meaningful applicational aspects. Development of matrices or indices was important specifically for non-manufacturing areas. This is a very important point. In this case, the experience was that you use measurement not only for manufacturing, but you use it everywhere. You use it in your management of finance, you use it in your marketing division, you use it in your HR division, and their case was very simple. You can develop matrices and indices of assessment anywhere you wish. So, what was the result of the TQM implementation? The customer line rejections dropped from, you can see the measurements. Plant processes rejections decreased from 2.1% of total pieces to 0.85% of total pieces. Now, these figures do not have to be comprehended. These figures are being quoted to show to you that the study that is being reported is a scientific study and there were measurements of the results of the intervention. So, the message is very simple. If you have a scientific method of intervention, then you get your results. Sales per employee went up from, and you can see the rise, the number of employee suggestions went up from 280 to 7,500 during this period. Again, a lot of these suggestions are worthless. but even 2 of the worthwhile suggestions can save you all the money which you will invest on it. But it is not the worthlessness that is to be commented upon. It is creating a general climate where people start getting involved with the company, where people start having a sense of belonging, and therefore, they start making suggestions, and these suggestions are always important, always helpful, because they help you to measure whether what you are doing is creating an impact or not. The key benefit was the continual improvement potential unleashed by TQM. RBL today is number 1 frictional material manufacturer in India. They supply to Tata Motors, Maruti Suzuki, General Motors, Mahindra and Mahindra, and also to Indian Railways and the Sri Lankan Railways. We get to the study of management by objectives. Management by objectives, therefore, is the wrap up for all that we have been doing in terms of intervention strategies, its applications, and how it is put on the ground. The reason why it is important to understand management by objectives is, really speaking, if you give the person the benefit of the doubt, what I think he wanted to say is that there must be a scientific method in management. You do not manage by random. Now, I know it is possible to poke fun at it, it is possible to joke about it, and rightly so, but it is easy to joke about something. A professional first tries to understand what the other person is trying to say. Get this principle right, and should be one of your major takeaways from this session also. You must always first understand the person on that person's terms. Before you sit on judgment, you must be asking yourself, what is he trying to say? And after you have understood what he is trying to say, then you can only go so far as to say, I agree with this, I do not agree with that. Because no matter what you say, there will be others too who will agree with you and who will not agree with you. How can you create a situation where everyone agrees with you? That is impossible to achieve. So, let us apply the same yardstick to Mr. Drucker. What was he trying to say when he was talking of management by objectives? And what he was trying to say is, apply the scientific method to management. And even though that may be the practice, that practice has to be converted into an orderly system, so that it can be implemented. So, he talked of the activity trap, he talked of the basic idea, he talked of how anything will have many usages, and he talked of the relevance as an intervention technique. It was his case that you may keep on doing something that it becomes so often that it becomes unthinking. Each day you come, you sweep, you do not apply your mind, you just run the broom, do it, go away. Each day you come, you repeat the activity, you bathe, you are thinking of something else, you come out, you do not realize the significance of bathing, you do not realize how it soothes nerves, you do not realize what cleaning of the hair has got to do as distinguished from cleaning of the body. It becomes a routine action. You take up a toothbrush, you clean your teeth. You never pay attention to what is the angle of your brush, because it has become a routine activity. So, that is the activity trap. You do it so often that you keep on doing it. Somebody asks you, why are you doing it? You say, I do not know, I have always done it this way. And this is one of the biggest problems in organization management. Then he talked of the basic idea. Unless you have a basic idea of why you are there, what is the objective, which is where the word management by objectives originated. What makes you go where you are? And anything which furthers that objectives is welcome. If it does not further the objectives, it is not welcome. You have universities who run MBA programs to make you job ready. Now, if that is your objective, then you should be taught how to write your resume, not how to manage organizations. Nothing wrong with that. The university says, we will give you an MBA degree which will make you job ready. Therefore, everything that you do in the 2 years will make you ready for the job. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, let us first begin by getting you to know how to write your resume. Perfectly fair. That is what you are there for. But then you do not teach strategy, because the truth is, whatever you learn as a beginner, you will never use till 20 years later, because that is how long it will take you to graduate to that level, by which time all that you have learned will be totally irrelevant. So, why are you learning it? It has to do with the philosophy of education which underpins any degree. If you are creating manpower for large scale complex industrial organizations, which is what IIT MBA is about, then you orient your courses that way. If you are giving an MBA in a foreign trade school, then you teach them exports, imports. So, no matter what you do, I am talking of the educational system, because presumably the audience wants to acquire knowledge about management. It does not mean that there will be only one objective, but there has to be a hierarchy of objectives. And the dominant objective must subsume other objectives. Just because you join an educational institution to study, it does not mean that you will not excel in games. But excelling in games cannot be your primary objective. Then go to a sports institution. Nothing wrong with it. But you are in the wrong institution. Becoming a good sportsman is a perfectly laudable objective. But for that, you do not go to a place which is in the knowledge trade. In fact, the truth is that there is no one-to-one correlation between formal education in something and clinical excellence in that. There are any number of practitioners of Indian healthcare systems who are very effective, and mind you, they are not quacks, and who have learned the traditional systems of medicine through observation and family tradition. Formal education is useful only because it helps you to create a critical mass of numbers, and it is important because it creates predictive validity. But the formal system of education need not necessarily be the only route of education. And I do not want to generate a debate on which is the better route for education. My purpose is something totally different. My purpose is to show to you what is meant by objectives, how objectives can vary, how there is a hierarchy of objectives and how you practice management by focusing on objectives. So, that is the basic idea. And then Peter Drucker also talked of everything has many usages. And therefore, you have to understand use of management by objectives as an intervention technique. You abandon every other approach to management and you say, I will work only by management objectives. So, the first and the only question you ask, why am I here? And if the activity of that institution does not further than objective, that objective you shouldn't be there, it is a wrong choice. And just as there is disaster, as I said, because of wrong recruitment, if you join the wrong educational institution, you may get a fancy degree to take back home because of the brand name of the institution. At the end of it, it won't serve any purpose. Which is what makes management by objective such an important principle to understand. How can it be used as a tool to effect change? Because remember, we are still on the topic of management interventions, and we are about to wrap up this whole discussion, which has gone on for over 5 hours of interaction, by highlighting what it should conclude by management by objectives. Now, planning tool helps to determine what tasks are to be done to bring about the desired change in the organization. I have been talking of individual careers. Remember what I was talking in the preceding session. Intervention strategies called personal change, cause group change, cause change in interpersonal dynamics. So far I have talked of personal change. Now, let us talk of group change. Let us talk of changes in organizations. You can change organizations by pursuing management by objectives, by simply asking, why am I here? Or better still, why should the organization exist? Or the best of it all, what would happen if this organization did not exist? And if you ask that ultimate question, you get an insight on the most important question in life, that is, what would happen if this organization, this person, this relationship was not there? Then you get to the core of the worth of that organization. If you want to change an organization, then what are the questions you ask? It is a question of what you want to change, and this has been discussed copiously. So, since I am in the process of wrapping up and it will take a while to wrap up, you ask, why was this organization created? Was it created to be a product oriented organization? What was, for example, Steel Authority of India, why was it created? It was created to manufacture steel. What happened if Steel Authority of India started manufacturing lollipops? Could probably do it very well, but that is not why it was created. So, you create a change to make a better steel producing organization, management by objectives. On the other hand, a group of people may get together to invest, not because they are interested in that product, but they are in the business of investment and they want returns on that investment. One of the major financial investors is Wilbur Ross. He invested N million in SpiceJet, stayed there for N number of years, sold it off, made good money. You can't hold it against him. He was never interested in aviation. If he had the opportunity, he would invest just as much in shipping or textiles, which he has done. So, it does not matter to him. You tell him where money is to be made, he will make that money. And people create organizations for this. Toyota started as a textile manufacturing concern. Over a period of time, Toyota has moved away totally from textiles. In fact, not many Toyota employees even know that it was a textile manufacturing concern, and it is now in the business of cars. Because people who created the organization wanted to create an organization which was not product driven, but was purpose driven. What was the purpose? To make money. And if the purpose was to make money, how does it matter whether I am manufacturing textiles or I am manufacturing cars or I am manufacturing lollipops? Now, I am giving you corporate examples because that is something which you should get increasingly familiar with, especially as the course progresses. But this is what a Baniya mentality is all about, and in the best sense of the word. There is a story of this Baniya who went to heaven, and for those of you who are not familiar with the word Baniya, it is the Hindi word for a businessman, but it has a lot of connotations beyond businessman. No, in fact, I do not know how to translate Baniya. A Baniya is a Baniya. And in fact, it is used on many people. He had a very distinguished historian who when one asked to comment on a very distinguished national figure, with great profundity he turned around and said, oh, he was a Baniya. Then he was asked to explain, and I do not want to waste your time on what he said. This Baniya went to heaven, was met by Saint Peter, but the Baniya was a good Baniya, and he had earned a lot of credits in heaven. So, Saint Peter said, listen, you are a good Baniya when you are down there. For a person like you, I will give you a choice, you can go to heaven or hell, whichever you want. He says, that is all? He said, yeah, there is no third place here. So, he said, okay, I have heard a lot about heaven, let me go and see what heaven is like. So, Saint Peter said, okay, that is the gate to heaven, you go. So, he entered heaven. The moment he entered heaven, what did he see? People meditating, people having food which was very, very, healthy food, health food stuff. They were talking of the Almighty and Nirvana. He said, what sort of place is this? Nobody is enjoying life. Even the music which you hear were hymns and carols and bhajans. So, within 2 days he came back and met Saint Peter, and he told Saint Peter, I do not want to stay in heaven. He said, what is wrong? He said, sir, look at what is happening there. Nobody is enjoying life. I am a Baniya. So, Saint Peter said, the only other place is hell. He said, hell will be a lot better than heaven. Let me go to heaven. Let me go to hell. So, Peter said, that is the door. So, the Baniya went to hell, and what did he find there? Pain, hurt, people being fried in cauldrons, yelling, shrieking, fighting, and he said, oh my God, where have I landed myself? So, he ran out of this place quicker than he came in. So, he went back to Saint Peter again. He said, I don't want to stay in hell. So, Saint Peter said, look, I told you there are only two places, heaven or hell. Because you were such a good Baniya, such a good soul, I gave you the choice. Now, you have problems with both. What do I do with you? He said, Saint Peter, what do I know what you do with me? I am a Baniya. Send me where I can make those 2 rupees. Why do you want me to send me to go to heaven and go to hell? Now, that is the objective. I am happy when you can help me make those 2 rupees. Neither heaven helps you to make those 2 rupees, nor hell helps you to make these 2 rupees. That is a purpose driven situation. So, interventions are driven after the objectives, provided you know what the objectives of the organization are. And believe me, it is one of the most fundamental dilemmas to answer, and it is one of the basic questions to answer before you can get on with the act of intervention. I will be back with more of this.